All right, welcome back to Perspective, everybody, here on WWSU 106.9 FM. Welcoming in Miss Makenzie Hoeferlin of the Guardian Media Group, Wright State Guardian here at Wright State. Makenzie, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
So it is your first year as the EIC over there, is that right?
Yes, I started training last summer, and this is my first full year as EIC.
How did you get involved over there? Or initially, how did you get involved over there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my freshman year, I was a commuter, and I still am a commuter. But I was really looking forward to a way to get involved because I knew it was going to be really hard to make friends if I wasn't living on campus.
Right.
So I started looking for organizations that caught my eye and that I was interested in. I actually messaged the previous EIC, Sarah Cavender, on Facebook, and I was like, "Hey, I'm looking for internships," which kind of surprised her because nobody had ever really messaged her over Facebook before. So I thought that was kind of funny. But I actually messaged her over Facebook before summer even started, and she was like, "Oh yeah, you could totally join. Like, come write for us." So I started doing that. I was an intern, contributing writer, for almost my entire first semester there. But then it's so funny to me. They needed a sports reporter. And I was like, I am not going to report on sports. Like, that's not me. Like, I even was talking to my mom about it. And she was like, yeah, I can't see you doing that. And I was like, gee, thanks. But so they needed a sports reporter and they just kept convincing me and like, hey, you can do this. Like, totally. They were very desperate for a sports reporter, if that tells you anything, because they were trying to convince me to do it. But I ended up taking the sports reporter position, and I was in that position for my whole almost entire first semester at Wright State. And I thought I was going to hate it, but I actually really enjoyed it. Just like being able to sit down with some of the really great athletes on campus and like do spotlights on them and talk to them, and that sort of thing. But yeah, so I started out there, and then turns out the previous EIC was graduating, moving into my end of my freshman year. And I guess a lot of the other senior editors there didn't want it. They, had the opportunity to apply and they didn't want to. And Dylan, who is the business manager over at the Guardian, walked into the office one day, and this is when we were still on campus before COVID. Yeah. He walked into the office one day, and I was just sitting there on my computer doing my work, and he walks in and closes the door, and I'm like, what are you doing? Because Sarah was in the other room. And he sits down, he goes, have you thought about applying for editor-in-chief? And I was like, no, what are you talking about? Like, I just got here. Like, I'm literally just a sports reporter. Like, anybody else can do it. Yeah. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And he literally sat there and hyped me up and told me that I'm the perfect person for the position. And that took even more convincing than the sports reporter position did. But he finally convinced me to apply, and it's literally became the biggest part of my life, and I love it.
Yeah, and you're doing a great job over there. Us here at 106.9 sit there and it's like, gosh, they're doing awesome stuff. It's the social media stuff that you guys are doing, whether it's the Tuesday takeover that you guys do, anything like that. So we love what you guys are doing over there. But what kind of changes have you seen personally? Not like initially on when you became EIC, but even when you started at Sports Reporter, what kind of changes have you seen, whether it's for good or for bad? I don't want to make any bumps in the road here, but what kind of changes have you seen from your eyes since you first started?
Since I first started, honestly, the biggest change is that we have grown so much. We have almost doubled our staff since I first started. Wow. So when I first joined my freshman year, the staff was maybe 17 people. I mean, you had, EIC, business manager, social media manager, staff photographer, and then, writers and editors. And then on top of that, you had maybe 2 or 3 people who were like, oh yeah, I'll volunteer my time. I won't be paid. I'm just doing this. I'm just here for fun. Which is great to see that because, they're there because they want to be there.
Yeah.
But now we have a staff of above 30 people. I mean, our social media team, when I first joined, was 2 people. You had the social media manager and then one other person that helped out sometimes. Now our social media team is 8 people. And we have, numerous amounts of people just on the staff writing because they want to, not because they're being paid. And so we've really upped recruitment and trying to get more people involved. And I think that's the biggest change I've seen. We've just like grown exponentially.
Yeah, I think that passion is awesome for people who just want not like a paycheck is nice, but I mean
Mhm.
you're there because you want to be there and you enjoy it, and I think that's something that I know I'm here for,
Mhm.
which is kind of funny because literally I had Scott Kramer in one of my
Mhm.
classes, and he said, "Hey, you interested in this?" I was like, "Yeah," and then I got in touch with Shay, and he said, "Well, let's do this. We'll see if you like it." And I did, and I kind of stuck around. And I think that's something that we've talked about. Is
Mhm.
kind of if you bait that hook, uh, people are going to grab on, and a lot of times they don't let go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what happened to me. I mean, of course, I put a lot of time into the Guardian a week, and so it's really great to be paid for the hard work that I put in. But if I were to be completely honest, I love it so much I would be here without the pay.
Yeah, yeah, and that's like what we've talked about is. Like I just said, the pay is
Mhm.
nice, but you're there because you enjoy it. And when talking about why do you enjoy it so much? Like where does that passion for I don't know if it's following stories or writing. Where does that passion come from for you?
Yeah, so I'll kind of start with how I chose my major. I chose my major by process of elimination because I came into college and I was like, well, I hate math. I'm not going to do anything that requires me to do that. I don't really enjoy OChem, so I'll pass on that. I don't want to do anything with science related. And so I was like, well, communications, I like talking. That sounds great.
Yeah,
So I started out as communications major, switched to media studies. Um, and I guess really where my passion is writing, telling people's stories, but also leading others. I was really involved in high school. So in high school, I was, the leader in all of my activities that I was in,
yeah,
field commander of marching band, like musicals, all of that good stuff. And when I got to college, like especially my freshman year, I really missed that aspect of like leading and helping others. And I was really able to find that and immerse myself in that with the Guardian because now every single day I get to help out my staff and lead my staff and help them towards success. And I think that is the part about my job that I enjoy the most is just leading others.
yeah. When you talk about that, you just won the award for distinguished established leader
Yeah.
here for SIL. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, what, in your opinion, does it take for, or what is an important factor in being that good leader that you talk about?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that's, a question that you want to ask all leaders because you want to figure out what it is, what do they possess that makes them a good leader. And I think there's many different types of leaders. There's many different aspects that
Sure.
um, create good leaders and grow people into great leaders. But I think the biggest thing for me is just wanting to put others before yourself, setting a good example, and having that drive to take the initiative, not having to have somebody to tell you, okay, and hold your hand through the entire process. Okay, you do this. Okay, now you do this. But having that initiative and that drive to take it to the next step, to have goals and ambition without being asked. And I think that's one of the most important things.
Yeah, you talk about how you talked about your staff and how they're important in
Hmm.
really the help with that they give you. But what do you do as EIC to kind of assist your staff, whether it's photography, whether it's editing? What is that? Where does that role kind of come in for you?
Yeah. So, one of the biggest things that I was told when I was going through the hiring process was your next year will be almost solely dependent on the people that you hire. If you hire great people that are passionate about what they're going to be doing and they're hardworking, your next year is going to be so much easier because you're not going to be have to, fighting with people to get them to do their job.
Yeah.
So I guess the biggest thing for me was just hiring a staff. I'm so appreciative of the staff I have right now. I have a phenomenal staff, and I
Yeah.
could not have, I would not be where I'm at right now. I would not have won that leadership award if I did not have a phenomenal staff to
Yeah.
lead. But back to your question, on a day to day basis, EIC, a big part of it is having meetings and overseeing my staff. So I meet with the business manager and the social media manager, and I meet with the staff photographer, and we just go over how their team is going this week, what issues arose, how we can solve those, what goals they have for the future of their team, those sorts of things. But I mean, aside from that, editing articles, publishing articles, constantly reading through those articles to see what I can teach my team to make them better writers. I particularly wouldn't consider myself experienced in photography. I really know nothing about photography. If I don't have a phone that takes good pictures, my photos aren't going to be good. That's just it. But having those people on my team, like Dylan, who are a little bit more experienced in photography, and then having a staff photographer that knows what they're doing, who's hardworking, that's kind of where I'm really thankful for my staff, really thankful for what they do. But a big part of my job is just overseeing the organization and making sure that we're meeting the big goals that I've set for us this semester and this year.
Yeah. So you talk about assisting your staff in editing, whatever that may be. For you, you talked about your passion when it comes with writing. What is the most difficult part about whether it's following a story or writing? What is that the most like kind of thing that stumps you a little bit?
Yeah. There's several different ways I could probably answer this question. I mean, of course, there's the difficulty of, sources not getting back to you or, staying within a word count. But I'd say the most difficult part of writing for me is probably when, that's a hard question.
Yeah.
I would probably say when I sit down to write a story, one, getting into that mindset, that creative mindset of wanting, being able to just sit down and write what I want to write, but also wanting the story to come out as I envisioned it, because a lot of times you will go into an interview or you'll come up and you'll pitch a story idea and you'll have this like huge vision in mind of this story. This is what I want the story to be about. This is, how I want it to flow. This is the message that I want to get across with this story. And then you go into your interviews and you come out and you're like, I cannot write the story I planned. Like, they did not give me the information that I wanted, which is kind of like a hard mindset to go into an interview. Like, you can't go in with that mindset of, I want them to say this, 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 and this, so I can quote them saying this, this, and this.
Yeah.
You have to go in with an open mind, and I think that's something that's really important and something that I've had to work on a lot, is just going in with an open mind and focusing on you may not always come out with the story that you went in with, because your story is going to depend on the people you talk to and what they're saying.
Yeah. So you talked about the interview process with writing stories. When writing a story, what's that mindset for you? Kind of like, is it like you're looking through the reader's eyes? If you're a reader, what would I want to see? What's that kind of mindset for you when writing it? Like, is it maybe it's, I don't know, try to grab their attention with something interesting, maybe something funny? That ostrich story that you guys put out on April Fool's Day was fantastic.
I wish I could take credit for that, but it was Dylan's idea, and I just kind of like went along with it. I was actually hesitant about it at first because I was like, okay, I cannot have people like believing this is real. Like I'm a very serious person when it comes, especially to work. And so when Dylan threw out the idea, and I was like, I don't know, but we went with it, and it was a huge success. It was awesome. But sorry, what was your question?
Yeah, what's that mindset for you when writing a story? Is it from the reader's eye? I know it's kind of tough to because you're the one writing it, but is it like I don't know, maybe try to grab their attention or relay the most accurate information, of course, but what's that mindset like for you?
Yeah, of course. One of my favorite professors, Ray Marcano, he took me under his wing kind of this year, gave me an internship with Dayton Daily News, and helped me get, another internship this summer. But one thing that he always says is, when you're sitting down to write, don't sit down with the mindset to, that you have to write a story, that you have to do this, that you have to do that. Just sit down and write. And I've really taken that to heart and done that, because sometimes when you really want a story to be great, you really want a piece to be great, it's really hard to like hype yourself up to sit down and write it, or especially for me, it's like, I want this to be so good. How do I sit down and write this? But I just have to sit down and write, and that's really where I start. But as far as the perspective, the biggest thing to think about for me, especially when, just starting the process with pitching a story, you can't think about what you want to write about. You can't think about what the story that you want to hear, because you're not writing for yourself. If you were
Right.
writing for yourself, you would do it in a journal. You
Right.
have to think about what your audience wants to read.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I sit down and focus with. It's really paying attention to who your audience is for me, because that's who I'm writing for. So when I sit down and I write, it's really a big focus on who am I writing for and how can I phrase this in a way that they will understand and that they will enjoy it.
Yeah, that's something that a mindset that I've kind of taken into this show is, what does the audience want to hear? I mean, personally, I'm a horrible writer. I mean, it's tough because I'm not good at writing, but what I am good at is talking and just kind of
Mm-hmm.
ramble aimlessly, which is a lot of what this show is. I just ramble aimlessly for an hour. But yeah, I kind of that's one mindset. Like I don't think I'm selfish, but at times I feel like I am, because I do this because I enjoy it, but there is that aspect of
Mhm.
what do people want to hear? What do they want to see? What is their interest? And that's something that I've really liked about doing this, and I'm sure that you've had the same experience over there at the Guardian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Makenzie, I can't thank you enough for joining us here today. Thank you for your time. I know you're busy, but I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. I will always make time to meet other people, talk with other people. As much as I am busy, it just means that I use my time wisely. So
Yeah.
thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, of course.